So, the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's conversation with Arjuna, which is very relatable because everyone is in some sort of difficulty in this world. And the first chapter is often labeled the yoga of despair. And there is a way in which, when there's a sense of despair in one's life, one turns to God. Of course, as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, one has to have some piety. Chaturvida vajante mam jana sukritina arjuna arto jignasa artarti jnanicha paratarshapa. 7th chapter of Gita. Krishna says 4 kinds of pious people turn to me. The arto, somebody who's in distress, they have some piety in their life. They want to turn towards God. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we know the story of the Avanti Brahmana, who was a wealthy person, but he was also stingy. He did perform some sacrifice, but it was mostly for his own benefit. However, in one sacrifice, when he was performing some of the rituals, he thought of God, and it left an impression in his heart. And in due course of time, his customers forsake him. Forsook. What's the past tense of forsake? Forsook. Better look it up. They split. His relatives left him. His customers left him. The demigods also were not favorably inclined towards him because he had been so stingy throughout his life. And he lost everything. He had gone from a wealthy man to now he was bereft. And in that state, what was left was a tiny molecule of remembrance of a time when he had performed sacrifice for God. And that inspired him. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vikramanashosti pratyavayanavidite swalpamabhyasiddhanasya trayate manapodaya. And even if one does something seemingly insignificant, or as Krishna puts it, su alpam, tiny gesture towards God, that's never lost. Nor is any other service that one does to the Supreme, as is mentioned by Narada Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tyakva sadharanam charanam bhujam harer bhajana paprota tate pato yadi yatarkva vabhadrama abhuthamushyakin to kovarta apto vajatam sudharmata. That Narada Muni then says, well, if you're inclined to do something for the Lord and you give up your normal course of activities, even if you were a pakva, you weren't ready for it, and you made a little tiny advancement, he said, that's better than a whole lifetime of plumping up your resume and getting into all the right schools and getting the right jobs, but then never taking to devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Avanti Brahman then, with a sense of detachment in his heart and wanting only to seek the Supreme, went out and wandered as a renunciate. And everywhere he went, he was berated by people. Some people threw things at him. Other people spat on him. Actually, it's painful to even mention all the ways that the Srimad Bhagavatam described how he was abused. Nonetheless, the determination was strong within his heart. And whatever happened to him, as seemingly it was they were reversals of fortune from how he had been before, he commented that, who can I blame for this? He said, if one bites one's own tongue, he said, who do you scream at for doing that? And he said, similarly, whatever kind of reactions I've developed in my life, these are all coming from my own past sins. And of course, this is the quintessential attitude of someone eligible to go back to Godhead, as Brahma has said in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tattena Kalpam Susamikshana Unjana Eva Vikritam Vipakam Ridva Viridam Namaste Jiveta Yomuti Pade Sadayapa. And if one is able to accept punishment as the reward of the master and takes the lesson from it, then one becomes eligible to go back to Godhead, to inherit the kingdom of God. And therefore, in his purport to this verse, Sridhar Swami, the great Acharya of antiquity, who commented on the Bhagavatam, says, is the duty, the son of a rich man, to stay alive somehow or other. And similarly for the devotee, even though this world is full of stressful situations, and sometimes we feel that, oh, my Lord, I took to devotional service, why am I being mistreated? Still, he says, somehow or other stay alive, because you'll inherit the kingdom of God. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in regard to this verse, that although it seems that a devotee has some karmic reactions, even after surrendering, he said these are not actually karma, but they're Krishna's kind arrangement, so that the devotee will be inclined to give up the last vestiges of attachment to the material world. Because, as Tushta Krishna Prabhu many years ago revealed to me, along with Parma Prabhuna Das, they had come with me to Govardhan Hill, where we stay every Kartik. And I had been out on a parikram and I came back, and they were like two scientists on the roof of the building we were staying in, where there were little dwellings. And they had a book in their hands, and when they saw me coming up the stairs, they called out to me, I think we found something. Can I have it? Do you have the verse?
I never got reading glasses.
Oh, I can find it. He said, I think we found something. They were so excited about it. Thank you. It's kind of just like that. And when I got closer, they read me a purport from the book that I'm holding in my hand, which is called The Light of the Bhagavad. And this is a very encouraging verse and purport. The verse may sound benign, because it's just describing a phenomenon in autumn. But Prabhupada's purport is encouraging for one to continue on the path of devotional service despite any obstacles. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Just not very much, right?
Yeah.
Prabhupada writes, devotional service to the Lord never goes in vain. Just at the right moment, the result of one's particular devotional service will come, even if one has no desire for it. The pure devotees do not wish any return from the Lord in exchange for their service. They do not make business exchanges with the Lord, but the Lord, out of his own accord, fulfills all the desires of the devotees. It may appear that a devotee of the Lord is becoming poorer and poorer in terms of material prosperity, but factually he is not. The typical example is the Pandavas, the 5 brothers headed by King Yudhishthira, who underwent all sorts of difficulties because of the conspiracy of their cousins headed by Duryodhana. But in the long run, King Yudhishthira was enthroned by Lord Sri Krishna, and his enemies were vanquished. King Yudhishthira was never disturbed by all the calamities that overcame them, even though Lord Krishna was ever their companion. The Pandavas never prayed to the Lord for anything but his devotional service, and in due course of time, everything came out in favor of the devotees. A devotee, therefore, should execute his devotional services with full energy, endurance, and perform his scheduled duties, he should be pure at heart, and he should serve in association with devotees. All 6 of these items will lead the devotee to the path of success. One should not be discouraged in the discharge of devotional service. Failures may not be detrimental. They may be the pillars of success. One must have good faith in the regulative principles, followed by self-realized souls, and one should not be doubtful about the ultimate result of such devotional service. Rather, one must go on executing his prescribed duties without hesitation, and one should never be influenced by unwanted association. We should not consider going back to Godhead a plaything. We must take it seriously, as enjoined in the scriptures. For a strict follower, the result is sure and certain, and when the time is right, the result will come of its own force. Dhruva Maharaj went to worship God to gain something, and when he actually came in contact with God, he did not want anything from the Lord. The Lord, however, awarded Dhruva Maharaj both benefits. That is, the Lord fulfilled his desires and also gave him eternal salvation. Such are the lessons we learn from all the revealed scriptures. The Almighty God awards the results we desire, and therefore we should desire that which is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In devotional service, we should never endeavor for that which is temporary and useless. And in the Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned, first chapter, the Yoga of Despair, Arjuna is put into such a precarious situation. It's an intractable situation. Seemingly there's peril on both sides. If he decides to fight, he's killing those beloved relatives to whom he would show his success in winning the war. And if he loses, then he goes down as a loser, which he's not, and he would be defamed. So it seemed that there was nowhere to turn except to Krishna. And in devotional service, when we're able to develop this inclination to turn to Krishna rather than to self-prescribe for our own, to decide our own next steps in life, then we're under the divine nature. Krishna says, Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashita. A great soul is someone who takes shelter of Krishna, and for such a person, he or she is under the protection of the divine nature. And when Arjuna then turned to Krishna, he said, I no longer want to speculate about what to do next. Please tell me what is best for me. And then Krishna gives very straightforwardly the prescription for success in any endeavor. He starts with describing how we're not our material bodies. He describes how one who works in the world without claiming the result is not touched by the reaction for the work. He describes how if one is able to accumulate transcendental knowledge by approaching a person who's in knowledge, then one won't be bewildered by the material world. He talks about how to practically apply the knowledge of renunciation, what real renunciation means, and that is not that one stops working or gives up one's particular duty in life, but that one dedicates everything to God. He says in one of the verses to Arjuna in the 5th chapter, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karoti lipitena sapahena patram ilam vasa. He tells Arjuna that when internally your intention is to offer everything to Krishna, then even though you're interacting with the world, you're never profaned by the material energy or dragged down by it. And then he gives the example of called Padmaja. Padma means mud, and ja means to be born. So the lotus is called Padmaja because it's born at the bottom of the pond in the mud. And then it grows up to the top. And although it's in the water, it's impervious to water. You'll notice water splashes on the lotus, on the leaf or in the flower, it just rolls right off. Now similar, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karodya. If one gives up the intention to be in the world for one's own benefit, but rather signs everything over to Krishna, then one's never implicated in the world. And I was thinking how that's true in finance as well. For instance, if you don't want to pay taxes, then just claim that you don't own anything. There's nothing to tax. That's why people have non-profits, for instance. We make no profit. And oftentimes, the people will arrange their portfolio so they don't really own anything. So it's artificial, but the same principle is there. That whatever we're working in the world and whatever we're doing it for Krishna. And we never claim proprietorship over it. This is very practical because, as Krishna says earlier in the Gita, Nahi kashit shanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit karete yavasha karma sava prakriti jarvana. That you can't stop working, even for a moment. But you can change your intention in the way that you use whatever you have in the service of Krishna. And in Sri Upanishad it says a similar thing. Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magradha kasisuddhana. Everything animate or inanimate within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. I think I saved you a lot of distress. You can thank me later. Ishavasamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Everything animate or inanimate within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for oneself, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to be whom they belong. And one can take tena tyaktena bunjita, whatever is given to you as your quota. You can take that and don't take more. And if you do that, if you work in the world in that mood, kurvane viha karmani jijivi shekshatam samaha. Even twainanyate tostina karma lipite nare. Same word lipite means to be smeared. You don't get smeared by the material energy. It never touches you. That's in the verse I quoted earlier from the Gita. Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karoti lipite. See? Lipite. It's the same concept. So it's repeated in many places. So Krishna then goes into detail about the meditational system, and then tells Arjuna, if you have love for me and you're thinking of how to serve me in the ways I've described, out of love, you think of me and you serve me, then you're the topmost yogi. In that chapter he also says, that's chapter 6, Atma yeda sarvatra samapashitu yorjuna sukham vaya nivadukam sayogi paramomadaha. That if, because of your cultivation of devotional service, working in the world just for Krishna, offering everything to him, the results go to Krishna, you develop a sense of compassion for others as you see them struggling with sukha vaya nivadukam. They're going through these cycles of bhogatyaga, enjoyment and renunciation, happiness, distress, over and over again, getting caught in the same cycle, which Krishna says simply produces misery. Ehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkayonaya evate. They're caught in this. He said if the yogi develops a sense of compassion, empathy for others, he also says in that chapter, that's the highest yogi. Somebody who has empathy for others. And then starting in the 7th chapter of the Gita, Krishna tells us that we should samshayam. Yata gyasa sita shindu. That he says, touch Srinu, just here. And if you hear, then all your doubts will go away. And you'll understand how the world works. You'll be able to see for yourself. Jnanam teham savikyanam idam vakshami sheshtaha yajyatva neham bhuyo naj gyatavyam avashishite. You'll see the difference between the phenomenal world and the numinous world. That is this world of gross matter, which Krishna then describes as being composed of gross and subtle elements. And then he says, there's something more, and that's you. You're beyond the gross and subtle elements. Means earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. It says these are the material elements, gross and subtle. But then he says, aparaya vitasvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahavahoya yedam darite jagat. Besides these, there's the conscious entity, you, who are animating the body and who are interacting with these modes of material nature. And by understanding the differences in these energies, part of hearing from Krishna, and then being able to see how everything, as Krishna describes in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is connected to Krishna. Everything that you see in the world that's extraordinary, then you can use that to think of Krishna. And in the 8th chapter, Krishna then describes the ways in which one should prepare oneself for the next life. Arjuna's asking about what is this universe? What is the self? Who are the demigods? Who is the Lord of sacrifice? How does he live in the body? What is karma? He wants to know. And Krishna, in just a few verses, answers all his questions. Bhuta pavod bhavakaro karma sangjita. He says to Arjuna that because of the way that you're developing your consciousness through your association in this world, you're creating your own future bodies. So he said, it's all coming from you. The way that you're taking various forms in this world. That's karma. It's forcing you, but what's the force? It's your own consciousness. At the time of death, he'll be describing in the 8th chapter, and also in the 15th, the ways in which, when we leave this world, our consciousness carries us to the next body. Famously, yam yam vavi smaran bhavam tajat yante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kontiya sada tat bhavita. Which is Krishna saying that whatever feeling you have when you leave this world, and that's what we're left with, predominant feeling, an attachment. There's an aggregate of all the associations we've had in this lifetime, all the ways that we've developed various attachments are combined into a cloud, like a digital cloud. And the mind is like that. And at the time of death, there's a predominant feeling we have, an attachment to a particular person or a particular circumstance. And Krishna is yam yam, bhakti. Whatever that is, that's what you're going to attain. By the force of your own consciousness. So then he says something very practical. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yujicha mayarpita mano buddhya mami vaishyasya samshaya. He says, therefore, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Arjuna, in all times and places, circumstances, you should use your senses, your life, your mind, everything to remember me. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yujicha. And he indicates, because he's speaking to Arjuna, who's in this difficult situation, he says, and you can do it while you fight. Yujicha means even while fighting you can do this. You can remember me even while you fight. Mayarpita mano buddhya mami vaishyasya samshaya. He said, without a doubt, you'll be able to attain perfection. Prabhupada, in this very short purport to that verse then says, this is good instruction for everybody because everyone has to work in the world. He said, even as you work, you're fighting to maintain your status quo, whatever that may be. He said, learn to remember Krishna. Prabhu says succinctly that means do your work and chant Hare Krishna. Keep chanting Hare Krishna. Abhyasa yogi yuktena chetasananyugamina paramam purusham divyam yati partana chintayan. And he said it takes practice. In the next verse, you have to practice this. You have to do it over and over again. And he describes that there are many ways to think of me. He says, Kavim Purana, Manushashchitara, Anur Aniyam Samanusmarityaha, Sarvasya Dhatana Vichintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parasta. He says, you can think of me while you do your work as what? Kavim, the smartest person. And Puranam, the oldest person. It's kind of nice to think of Krishna that way, isn't it? He knows everything. That's pretty smart. And Puranam, he's the original person, Adi Purusham, so that's pretty old. He's eternal. That's pretty old too. Anushashitaram Anur Aniyamsam Anusmaretya Saha, he describes how he's maintaining everything and everyone, and he's protecting everyone in the world. So he goes on to describe how some people try to mechanically control their senses. Prayana kale manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga bhavena chaiva bruvur madhye pranam avesha samyak satam param purusham aiti divyam. He said that yogis, they get accustomed to manipulating their prana, their life air, so they can raise it to the middle point between the eyebrows. And then at time of death, they can prepare to leave the body through the top of the head. Soul can leave through different orifices of the body. And the yogis become practiced in that, how to raise themselves. And at the time of death, they have the wherewithal, the strength. It's called yoga balena. And Prabhupada points that out in the verse. He says, if you haven't done this abhyasa in your life, then when you leave, how are you going to have any strength? You have to have yoga balena. Bal, like balaram, means strength. You have to have yoga balena. You've practiced through thick and thin in this lifetime. You've kept going. You kept doing your rounds, even though there were difficulties. You did your service, even though you were minus a few pots or spoons or whatever. It was cold, it was hot. Sun got in my eyes, dog ate my homework, whatever it was. You go on with your practice of devotional service. So he calls this the development of yoga balena. He said, all yogis try to develop that yoga balena because they know that this lifetime is just temporary stopover and the human body is a facility, a jumping off place. It's not the ultimate. You just keep it as healthy as you can so you can have vitality. Kama Senendriya Pritya Lavo Jivite Yavata Jivasya Tattva Narto Yash Jaya Paramavi. Srimad Bhagavatam says as well, just stay as healthy as you can. You could go to Whole Foods if you want, it's all right. Eat organic. And engage your senses as much as you need to be balanced in this world, but it's only to save energy for yoga balena, for inquiry into the Supreme, to hear, tashrinu, to be absorbed. Learn to be absorbed. Even if you can't be absorbed, learn to be absorbed. You have to get that sense of emotion for Krishna. The bhava has to be for Krishna, not for anything in this material world. We know from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bharat Maharaj, he was practicing diligently, and then he got a little sloppy. I say it that way, and it's not an offense because Prabhupada says not using that word, but many other words. I analyzed the chapter very carefully. He diverted his attention, and all that emotion, so transference, all that emotion that he was developing for Krishna, the bhava that he had, just switched course and went into the maintenance of the little deer. They have little ears, spindly there's so many things that we can catch our consciousness on in the material world. Unless we develop yoga balena, an attachment to Krishna, as Rupa Goswami describes, Yuvatinam yata yuni yunam shaliga vata yata mano vinamateta man manamera matam tvai. So use this lifetime to transfer all your sentiments that you have for people and things in this world to Krishna. And the same kind of attraction that people have in this world for instance, boys for girls, that's what the verse says. Yuvatinam yata yuni. Boys and girls don't need a class on how to be attracted to one another. They just naturally do it. And so he says, please let my emotions and my attention and all my intentions go to you, Krishna. It takes a lot of practice. You have to get yoga balena. And Krishna goes on in that chapter to describe how the universe is working. He gives us a categorical inspection of the material world. Abrahama bhuvana loka punar avartino jana mamupetya tukunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Save you a lot of time. You can thank Krishna later. He says from top to bottom, it's all a place of misery. Does that help you out? Say yes. Yeah, because then where are you going to go? Maybe Monterey, Carmel, Texas, whatever it may be. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find that little place where you're going to be happy. The only place you're going to find it where you're happy is when you're absorbed, when your emotions are going to Krishna. And then, the Bhagavatam also confirms the perfection of that idea, that if you're able to transform and transfer your emotions to Krishna, then wherever you go, it says Chitraketu. Actually, it's not Chitraketu, it's Shiva watching Chitraketu got cursed by Parvati because Chitraketu saw Parvati and Shiva hanging around. And he just sort of, like, that's weird. He just sort of chuckled. And Parvati became upset and cursed him. And he came down from his airplane, he offers obeisances to Parvati, said, I accept your curse on my head. And then Shiva said, just see, the Vaishnavas who have transferred themselves from this attraction to the material world to Krishna, they don't care where they go. They can be in, he said, they can be in heaven or they can be in hell. But all they really care about is their service. Whatever it may be. Tell the story of Brahmananda and Gargamuni. Prabhupada had been challenged at one public program he had. Somebody kept screaming out, well, why don't you preach this in the Muslim countries? And then Prabhupada, as the warrior he was, said, all right, we'll do it. Called Brahmananda and Gargamuni, said, go to Pakistan. They just packed up their stuff and left. By the time Prabhupada changed his mind, they were already gone. And then there was news that some Westerners who were on a religious mission had been killed there. And Prabhupada was disconsolate until they miraculously came back. It wasn't them. What are the chances? But the point was, they were ready to go at any time. So if one divests oneself of all one's attachment, divest means transfer it all to Krishna in this life, then when death comes or Yamaraj comes, said, okay, time to collect, I don't have anything. It's already gone. I gave it up already. This is one of the great tricks of life, if you want to know. If you want the best advice ever, it comes from Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj, he gave up everything. This is what we call the doctrine of preemptive giving, which goes like this. Everything you have is going to be unceremoniously taken from you. Don't you hate it when people take stuff from you when you weren't expecting it? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of agony, like, oh, and of course in the Gita, Krishna says, Mrityu sarva paraschaham. If you didn't read all the other fine print in the Bhagavad Gita, you just wait for death to come. It's like, what happened? It's like, you were supposed to read that? Like, Bali Maharaj's attitude was, like, all this stuff belongs to God anyway. I'm supposed to be a king. I own everything. I'll just give it all to Vamandev now. And his so-called spiritual master, that is Bali's so-called spiritual master, was going, no, 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 don't do it. Because like, how am I going to get my dakshina? He tried to stop the whole thing. It's like, you're supposed to keep a little something for yourself. He even tried to block the signing of the document, which in the Vedas is you pour water from a water pot. You take Om Tat Sat. I finished it and then it's sealed. He said, you didn't say Om Tat Sat. He said, well, I'll do that. Get the water pot. And Shukracharya, who was a mystic, he made himself really small and he got in the spout of the water pot and he was trying to block it. And Vamandev said, let me help you out there, and poked him. Then the water came out. And Bali just gave everything away. Interestingly, we don't have anything anyway. It's not ours. So what's this giving it away? One of my great heroes of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Dansha, also called the Dichi. When the demigods, they're always in some kind of a pickle, fighting with the demons, and they have this need for a weapon that is going to defeat the demons, most specifically Vritrasura, who's mentioned in Rig Veda and also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's formidable, so they need a special weapon, and the weapon's going to come from the bones of Didichi. Why? Because Didichi had been chanting the Narayana Kavacha, and because of the power of that mantra, even his bones, they could be turned into the most deadly weapon. So the Lord told the Devas, they said, yeah, you can make the weapon. You just go to Didichi and ask him for a little donation. What if somebody comes to your door for a little donation? People don't like to give so much, just, whatever's left over. Like Prabhu told Gopala Bhan stories. He said Gopala Bhan was a rascal. So one day, Gopala Bhan, who was an agriculturalist, he was carrying a big basket full of grains, and his friends were walking with him and said, you're so cheap, Gopala Bhan. You never give anything to God. You never give anything to anybody. And a big gust of wind came and it blew all his grains he had taken all day to collect up into the sky, and it was gone. And he went, I offer that to the Lord. But Bali Maharaj, he was so intelligent to give away, and Didichi, he had the same mood. He already prepared his consciousness. So when they came asking for a donation, he said, what kind of donation would you like? Your bones. And he first argued because he just wanted to hear some Atma-tattva Gyana. He said, my bones, this is my body, I need it, right? And they said, yeah, but you're not your body, and this and that. He goes, I know, I'll give it to you. He said, if it's for Vishnu, why not? It's going to be taken unceremoniously some other time. So if I get the opportunity to give the donation of my body when Vishnu asks for it, what more can one ask for in life, to have that opportunity? But anyone can do it preemptively. All you have to do is read the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharma parityaja, vamekam sharanam vraja, antam sarva papibhyo mokshaya shantimasraja. Any takers? Krishna's got little tables. They just sign up here. Sign over all your stuff. Just say it belongs to Krishna. And whatever you're going to do, you do for Krishna from now on. And you can check the little box off. Anybody else comes asking for anything, it's like, sorry, already gone. It's all for Krishna. When I first joined the temple, I had this really nice mentor. His name was Prita Garma. I used to like walking around with him. It was a new thing for me. Shave your head, put on dhoti, whatever they gave us, dhoti-like material, walk around, and people go, who are you guys? And he would say, we are devotees of Lord Krishna. And I thought, that's a pretty nice thing to be. I like these guys. I'm going to hang out. And that's what you want to be. Sign up before it's taken away by material nature. Because all you are then is one of the millions and billions of losers who tried to hang on to the last minute and then it was just taken away. Be Bali Maharaj. Be Didichi. So Krishna says, anyway, the material world is just totally temporary and miserable. What are you going to lose by giving up everything to me? And he says, especially for devotees, if you just try during this lifetime to think of me, become my devotee, then Naite Sriti Partajanam Yogi Muyati Kashchana Tasma Sarveshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjana. He says in the penultimate verse of this 8th chapter, he says, for a devotee, you don't have to worry about when you leave the world, because that's part of the discussion in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the right time to leave. And Prabhupada comments after Krishna says, doesn't matter for a devotee, they just depend on Krishna for everything, even when they leave their body. Prabhupada said, if a devotee leaves by accident or at the supposedly the wrong time, it's no harm, because they're totally under Krishna's care. And he ends the chapter by saying, Vedeshu yagneshu tapasachaiva vedeshu yat punyaphalam pratishnam atyeti tatsarvam idam vadika yati param stan vihaiti charyam, which means you don't lose anything. If you do devotional service, if you transfer all your assets to Krishna, sign them over. And whatever you do from now on, do it for Krishna. Don't do it for any other reason. Don't worry about it. Krishna says, Vedeshu yagneshu tapasachaiva. All the ways that people try to maintain the status quo in this world, he said, it's all taken care of by the policy. What policy? Sarvadharma Parityaja. You sign the policy? You sign the policy. It's taken care of. Vedeshu, Yagneshu, whatever, reading all the Vedas, doing all the sacrifices, tapasu, doing all the tapasyas, that he says, all these things are already covered by the policy. You just become a devotee. Just dedicate everything to Krishna. And he said, you won't be bereft of anything. You'll get the results of all these things just by being a devotee. It's so nice. And in the 9th chapter, he goes on more open-heartedly, just gushing about how he takes care of his devotees. He talks a little bit about how this material world is a manifestation of his energy, but he remains separate from it. He talks about all the ways in which we can dedicate our lives to Krishna and offer him things, like we talked about this morning. I already quoted the verse from Pushpa. And then he gets into how attached he is to his devotees, that he says, even if my devotees, abhichet suduracharo bhajite mamananivak, even if they're worldly, if they're dedicated to me, and they seemingly are not a very good character, he said, don't worry. Because of their involvement in devotional service, Shripram Bhavati Dharma, Shashvash Chantin Nikachiti, Konteya Pratidani Inami Bhakti Pranashiti. He said, you know this, and you say it, Arjuna. I'm not going to say it, you say it for the whole world, that my devotee is never vanquished. And very quickly that person comes to a path of perfection. Everybody's invited. He says, it doesn't matter what category of body you have. Doesn't matter, he says. If you take the devotional service, you'll attain the supreme perfection. Everybody has 100% equal opportunity in the process of devotional service. So the Bhagavad Gita is a non-fanatical literature. It's Krishna explaining the energies, Krishna explaining how consciousness works, Krishna explaining what birth, death, old age, and disease is, what happens at the time of death, how to become his devotee. Everything's there in the Bhagavad Gita. Only problem is, it's only one problem. What's that one problem? Nobody reads Bhagavad Gita. Even in places where people have the Bhagavad Gita, you say, you have the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah. You read the Bhagavad Gita? Not really. Just have it. So it's important to take shelter of Krishna's instructions, and some of the most profound statements are there in the Bhagavad Gita. And if we just take advantage of them, then we'll notice that they work. Everything works perfectly because it's coming from Krishna. Yemeva tamidam nityam anutishtanti madhava. He says, everything I say is perfect, Arjuna, don't worry. All my words are perfect. Just follow them. Isn't that nice? Wouldn't you like somebody to come along and say, look, I'm going to tell you perfect stuff. You you just follow it, your life's going to be fine. And you go, what? Yeah, I'll do it. Just say, yeah, I'll follow. And then your life's perfect. So we have such a great opportunity. You can read Bhagavad Gita and then enter into the mood of Bhagavad Gita and then give it to other people. Living entities are smart because they're part and parcel of Krishna. Even if they look downtrodden, whatever, a little bit of medicine, they'll pep them right back up again. Get them spruced up again. A proper living entity following the process of dharma. Shouldn't take too long, Krishna says. Happens very quickly. Those are a few rambling comments. Maybe we can have a few reflections or questions. What do you think? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I really like your concept of preemptive giving.
Preemptive giving. Give it before it's unceremoniously pried from your hands or stolen by the government. If you have money, then, and people find out about it, they're going to come and ask you for it. You know that? Have any cousins? Or your mom and dad say, you know, your cousin Dilip, he's not feeling so well. Nobody in the family has the kind of money you do, so you're going to have to pay for the operation. On the other hand, if you're ready to give it to Krishna, I heard such a nice story from Vishnu Maharaj when I was just in London. I was actually in New York. I heard it in New York. He talked about 1973. He inherited from his aunt. He said he was his aunt's pet when he was a child. She loved him so much, and he said he once complimented her perfume. Said, "You smell so good, Auntie." And she loved him so much. So when she left the world, she left him her fortune, such that it was at that time, probably in today's dollars, it was a couple $100,000. And guess where he was? He had just joined the ashram. He was a new brahmachari. Not even with saffron up yet, I think. And he was there, and the devotees found out that he got an inheritance. And although he was brand new, guess what they made him? The head of the Rath Yatra committee. And if you read just to cut to the end of the story, if you read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Prabhupada mentions in the chapter about the Lord's dancing at Rath Yatra, with such spiritual pride, he talks about the Rath Yatra in London in 1973, and how in the newspaper, the London Times said that the Rath Yatra cart rivaled the Nelson column. That's a big statue of Lord Nelson. He was a big hero, apparently. And he said it rivaled the Nelson column. And Prabhupada had placed that purport right in the section where it's talked about how the Rath Yatra cart at the Rath Yatra had been so grand, and I forget, what was the context? Challenging. There was another, what was that? Mount Meru, bigger than Mount Meru. And so, Vishnu Maharaj, who was just, he didn't have a spiritual name at that time, he was just Dr. Mike or something. And he said, he ended up spending all his aunt's money on the Rath Yatra. And it was such a glorious Rath Yatra. And he said, someone had come to him later and said, you know, if you had invested that, you would have been wealthy by now. He said, I already am wealthy. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. He said, I pleased my spiritual master. He wrote about it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nothing more to want in your life. Better to give it to Krishna than try to hang on to it till the bitter end. And where does it go anyway? If you forgot to sign your will, it goes to the court system, 30% at least, because you forgot to designate where it goes. So don't leave anything behind. Just try to preemptively give everything to Krishna in heart and soul and in kind as much as possible. Thanks for bringing it up. I'll try to give shorter answers. Anything else? Yes. Up to Ian. He's getting initiated tomorrow. pretty heavy. Yeah, but it's really true. And some of the heavy stuff we go through, and then we come out the other side. Please stand up because it's won't be too much. See? Microphone was unceremoniously
Taken away.
repossessed while I stood there.
It was given new life.
Okay, we'll just take a couple more reflections. Yeah, 1, 2.
You were speaking about developing spiritual
We're
emotion
speaking about developing spiritual emotion
for Krishna.
for Krishna.
And I was thinking, can I direct that to, say, another devotee?
Can you direct it to another devotee?
Because I can't quite,
Because we can't quite,
I don't want to imagine like something about Krishna or
you don't want to imagine something about Krishna. Well, yes, you can, because developing a relationship and emotion for Krishna's devotees is especially powerful because the devotees are so dear to Krishna. And if you become dear to the devotees and they become dear to you, and you're able to serve the devotees and remember the devotees and develop an attachment for them, then this is tantamount to being attached to Krishna. But there's no, in bhakti yoga, there's also no obstacle to developing a relationship with Krishna. If you consider deity worship, which is one of the 5 most important aspects of bhakti yoga, out of 64 items that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recounted or cataloged when he spoke to Sanatana Goswami, said 5 are particularly important, and one of them is deity worship. And there's a way in which, when we're able to serve the deity, then we'll develop a sense of attachment for the deity because Krishna is present there personally. And when we perform the service, the authorized kind of service, as I mentioned this, maybe I mentioned this morning. I did mention Vaisesika, but I didn't mention that there's, or perhaps I should have, there's a whole chapter about how to do deity worship. Krishna says it himself. So you'll develop a relationship with Krishna through worshiping the deity. If you bring something when you come and say, Krishna, I brought you this. I brought you an apple or some tulsi leaves or something like that through service, you can also develop an attachment. So Yudhishthira said to Vidura, Vavadivida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vivo Tirtha Kurvati Tirthani Sontak Snena Gadavrita. He said, Uddhava, you're a holy place personified because you carry Krishna and love for Krishna within your heart wherever you go. So you're walking Tirtha, holy place, connection to Krishna. So connection with devotees is the prime means for developing attachment to Krishna. Because in their association, as Kapila Dev says, Sutam Prasangam Mamaviri Samvido Bhavanti Karna Rasayana Kata Taj Joshana Ashwa Pavarka Bhartmani Shadara Tirnukarmishiti. If you associate with devotees, then what is the topic? It's Krishna. Sutam Prasangam Mamaviri Samvido. He said, if you associate with Sutam, pure devotees, then you're going to hear something really nice. You'll hear them talking about Krishna. And because of their kata, then you'll start to develop an attachment. Although I claim no attachment to Krishna whatsoever, I did feel a transformation when I came to the San Francisco temple. I joined there in 1973, and I was very much attracted by Bhagavad Gita. It's a long story, I won't go into all the details, but one way or another I got the Bhagavad Gita as it is in a couple other books, and I read them, and I wanted to join the temple. So I came there, then I found out about Bhagavatam, because there were Bhagavatams lying around, and I'd open them and I think, what are all these stories? Bhagavad Gita is so much about the straightforward philosophy. It's very succinct and clear, and I really loved it. But Bhagavatam, the pictures, and I was hard, and also in all the books I'd read outside of Krishna consciousness, God was manifested through nature, flowers, and everything. So when I first came before the altar to see Shri Radha Gokulananda, I really didn't see the deity. There were beautiful flowers though, and I was thinking, oh, that's it. I hadn't developed any sentiment whatsoever for Krishna. I remember the exact moment when I started appreciating Bhagavatam and when I started appreciating the deity. And it was because of the association of devotees. My temple president, Bhutatma, was giving a class on the first canon of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was about Krishna coming to Dwarka and then being served by his queens. And there is a verse there about how the queens became so enamored of Krishna, and they were so attached to him, that they couldn't quit those lotus feet. That phrase somehow, while I was sitting in class, and I was sitting for a couple months probably listening, but somehow or other I said, wow, they couldn't quit those lotus feet. And I just started suddenly experiencing some sense that, wow, Krishna's a person, and he has all these amazing devotees. And it started becoming clear, and then the deity started being attracted to me, and I liked to sit there and chant in front of the deity. And it was all the mercy of the devotees, because they were going on under Prabhupada's direction, just hearing and chanting. There's so much power in that, because they're following the pure devotee in the same mode of practice, and then they start to get infected. And Prabhupada counted on that. When he came to America, he had written on the Jaladuta, in one of his long poems, he put a paragraph from the first canto, second chapter of the Bhagavatam, starting with Srinvatam Swakata, or maybe he started with Shushu Shroshvaradhanasya Vasudeva Kataraji, Syad Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hritnyam Takstohi Badrani Vidunoti Surutsasam Nashta Prayusha Badreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Vikir Bhakti Neshtiki, Tadara Distamo Bhavaka Valovadeschaye Cheta Eterna Vidam Stitam Sattve Vasiti, etc. The point is, when one hears about, serves a devotee, Shushrushoshadhanasya Vasudeva, Syad Mahat Seveya Vipra, when you're able to serve a great soul, somebody who's already given up the material world, is attached to Krishna, you serve somebody like that, then you become like that. And the result, you start getting interested in hearing more about Krishna. And it becomes progressive in that, because of hearing, and gradually the lower modes of nature, tada rajastamo bhava, they diminish, and you start to get happy. Evam prasana manaso, your mind becomes joyful. Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata, in association with the Bhagavatas, two Bhagavatas, the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata. And then there's entrance into the world of devotional service through and attachment to Krishna through the devotees. So we should be like Prahlad Maharaj throughout his prayers. He's praying to Lord Nrsimhadev directly, but he's saying, what I want is Bhritya Sevam. I want Bhritya Sevam, which means I want to serve your servants. That's where the entrance is into association directly. Even though he's directly talking, offering his prayers directly to Lord Nrsimhadev, saying, I'm a servant of your servant. Evam janam dipatitam bhava, vahi kupe kama vikama anuyam prapatam prasanga kritva masa shurashina bhagavan grihita. So hum katam navishujay. Where's so hum? So hum katam navishujay. I told you there's a bunch of so hums, and so hum katam navishujay of a Bhritya Sevam. He said, I won't ever right there with Krishna. And then the guru and the devotees, they introduce us to the ways to become attached to Krishna. It's like that here when we're practicing here in Denver, Colorado. We have Radha Govinda. Who has that? We were sitting this morning chanting japa together. Mother Nidra came out, Mahaprasad, and sprinkling water on her head. And where do you get that? Most people rushing off to the office. Why are you late? Could be fired. And so many mundane considerations that become overbearing. We need relief. We get it in association with devotees. We just have a couple minutes left. Oh, who else had their hand? Yes, Prabhu.
I just had an appreciation. Thank you, Maharaj, so much for giving us a nice class. You said several times today about determination and effort, and you spoke about this morning, and then you were talking about what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita about how we make the effort with our consciousness, and I was just thinking that that's something that's within our power to do, and like, it's just very beautiful to have that opportunity, you know?
Yes, that was a quotation from one of Prabhupada's letters talking about chakra, and he said, by determination and effort. And then commented this morning, determination has the word terminus in it. Terminus means finish what you started. Shri Shri Govinda Ki Jai, Jai Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhaji Ki Jai. Gartik? What? Yeah, it's a time for our singing artist. Okay. So if you can finish the Bhagavad Gita, you're determined, because you can go from the beginning to the end. So